It started as an ordinary October night in Philadelphia. A young woman in scrubs, 23-year-old Carter Scott, waved goodbye to her co-workers and stepped into the cool air outside the assisted living center where she worked. She had a bright future, a Penn State graduate, a devoted daughter, a girl her parents called their heartbeat. By sunrise, that heartbeat was gone. Her phone went dark before midnight. Her car vanished from the parking lot. And somewhere in the quiet sprawl of East Germantown, a secret began to rot beneath the soil. The kind of secret that only surfaces when someone finally breaks their silence. 2 weeks later, a passerby would make a chilling call, a shallow grave behind an abandoned school, with something buried inside. And when police unearthed what lay beneath, the truth was more monstrous than anyone imagined, because the man they would accuse of killing her was someone she once trusted. Someone who had texted her only hours before she disappeared, a message that read, "Kidnap me again." She was 23. A Penn State graduate with a soft voice, a calm presence, and a work ethic that seemed older than her years. To those who knew her, Carter Scott was a quiet force, reliable, thoughtful, never one to make noise, but always the one you could count on when life turned dark. Her parents said she wanted to help people. That's why she worked the overnight shift at the Terrace, an assisted living home tucked into the Chestnut Hill section of Philadelphia. The hours were long, but she didn't complain. She liked taking care of people who couldn't take care of themselves. She was just good, her father would later say, his voice breaking on that word. Just good. On the night of October 4th, 2025, Carter clocked in for her usual shift. The parking lot lights buzzed faintly against the cold. Inside, she smiled at her co-workers, tied her hair back, and started the rounds, checking on residents, helping with medications, tidying rooms in the soft hum of midnight. To the people inside the Terrace, it was just another Friday night. But outside, someone was waiting. Court records later revealed a flurry of phone calls between Carter and a young man named Kean King, someone she had once been close to. The calls began at 9:25 p.m. and didn't stop until a little after 10. Her phone lit up again and again with his name. By then, co-workers noticed she looked uneasy, distracted. One later told police that she overheard Carter on the phone, saying, "I can't believe you're calling me about this expletive." Her tone wasn't playful. It was angry and scared. Still, Carter tried to push through her shift. But something changed around 10:15. Surveillance footage would later show her walking through the exit doors of the assisted living center, phone in hand. A dark-colored 2008 Hyundai Accent waited in the parking lot, headlights off, engine running. She opened the door, got in, and within minutes, the car rolled out of sight. Her co-workers thought maybe she'd left early, maybe she'd gotten sick, or had an emergency. No one knew it would be the last time anyone saw her alive. By 10:24 p.m., Carter's cell phone signal went dead. Her family noticed immediately when she didn't come home the next morning. Her mother's car, which Carter had borrowed for work, wasn't returned. Calls went unanswered. Texts stayed unread. By midday, October 5th, her father filed a missing persons report. He told officers about the man Carter had been talking to, a man who, according to him, wouldn't leave her alone. His name kept coming up, Kean King. King was 21, a slim-built man from Philadelphia who had been on police radar before. Investigators began piecing together his digital footprint, starting with cell tower data and text messages. What they found sent chills through the room. At 9:54 p.m., minutes before Kai vanished, she had texted King, "Kidnap me again," he replied. "Better be up to." Investigators didn't know if this was flirtation, sarcasm, or something darker, but the tone that followed wasn't teasing. It was tense, clipped, and cold. They knew from phone pings that both Carter's and King's devices traveled toward Aubrey Recreation Center, a quiet parkland shadowed by trees and bordered by an abandoned middle school. After that, silence. No more texts, no more calls, just dead air. Days turned into weeks. Flyers with Carter's picture spread through Philadelphia, a smiling young woman with bright eyes, her family begging anyone who had seen her to call police. Search teams combed wooded areas and parks. Volunteers gathered at dawn, carrying flashlights and prayer. Her mother told reporters she woke up every night to the same dream, her daughter's voice, crying for help, just out of reach. Then, on October 14th, a breakthrough. King turned himself in. He didn't speak a word during questioning. Police had already built enough evidence to charge him, at least for now, with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and tampering with evidence. But without a body, it was still a missing person case. King refused to explain where Carter was, what happened, or why he'd been calling her that night. "You'll find out soon enough," he allegedly told an officer as he was led back to his cell. Investigators went back to surveillance footage near Aubrey Rec Center. What they saw was the start of a nightmare. Around 10:30 p.m., a car matching the description of the dark Hyundai Accent pulled into the lot. The headlights flicked off. Minutes later, another vehicle arrived, a gold Toyota Camry registered to King. Two people stepped out, their faces shadowed by hoodies. They lingered, walked toward the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School, and vanished into darkness. Around 3 hours later, the cameras picked them up again. One waved to the driver of the second car, who flashed their lights twice. Then, slowly, two figures appeared carrying something large, heavy enough that both struggled under the weight. The object hung low, wrapped in dark plastic or cloth. They dragged it past the edge of the parking lot, toward the overgrown woods behind the school. Then the feed cut out. Police didn't find anything that night, but to the investigators reviewing the footage, the implication was unmistakable. They were watching the disposal of a body. 3 days later, on October 18th, a tip came in. A caller claimed there was something buried near the old school. Detectives arrived just after dawn. Behind the building, hidden beneath rotting leaves and broken branches, they found a shallow grave. Inside lay what remained of a young woman, decomposed, wrapped in torn plastic, and shot once in the head. Dental records confirmed what everyone had feared. It was Carter Scott. By the time her family received the news, the air in Philadelphia had turned cold. Her father stood in front of cameras outside the police department, shaking as he spoke. "She didn't deserve this," he said. "She was just going to work. She trusted the wrong person." His voice cracked on the word trusted. Detectives searched King's home on October 9th, even before they found the body, and discovered disturbing items: contractor bags, latex gloves, 9mm ammunition, a hammer, and 3 cell phones. They also found evidence linking King to a burned car, the same Hyundai Accent believed to have been used the night Carter disappeared. The vehicle had been set on fire on October 7th, just days after her disappearance. Investigators later recovered it from a junkyard, its frame charred, interior destroyed. It had been torched so thoroughly that any DNA or fingerprints were likely erased. When the medical examiner's office officially ruled Carter's death a homicide by gunshot wound to the head, prosecutors moved swiftly. On October 22nd, the district attorney's office charged King with murder, along with robbery, abuse of a corpse, obstruction of justice, and weapons violations. He was denied bail, but as prosecutors dug deeper, a new pattern emerged. This wasn't the first time King had been accused of violence against a woman. Records revealed that earlier in the same year, he'd been charged with kidnapping and strangulation in another case, involving a different victim. That case had been temporarily dropped, but was now being revived in light of Carter's murder. This is a man who displays a pattern of control, of violence, and of escalating behavior. Assistant DA Ashley Tucholowski told reporters, "We believe there may be more victims." Behind the scenes, detectives were investigating whether others helped King bury Carter's body. Surveillance video showed multiple people at the scene that night, suggesting King didn't act entirely alone. But those identities remained unknown, the faces too dark to distinguish in the days following the discovery. Carter's family returned to the place where her body had been found. They placed flowers at the edge of the woods, white lilies, her favorite. Her mother whispered that she used to call her my sunshine. Now, standing in the cold October air, she said softly, "They took my light." What haunted investigators most was the timeline, how quickly it all happened. Carter left work at 10:15 p.m. Her phone went dead 9 minutes later. By 10:30, surveillance showed the car leaving the lot near her workplace. Within 20 minutes, she was likely already gone. It was that fast, a life snatched in the space between a few unanswered calls. For days afterward, residents near Aubrey Rec Center reported hearing nothing unusual, no gunshots, no screams, just the wind moving through the trees. That silence became part of the story. How a young woman could vanish into the night, killed within minutes of leaving work, and how her body lay buried for nearly 2 weeks before anyone found her. Investigators believe King lured Carter out of her workplace, possibly under the pretense of talking or reconciling. They point to the "kidnap me again" message as a grim piece of irony. Words she likely meant as a joke or callback to their past, now forever tied to the horror that followed. When King was arraigned, he showed no emotion, no apology, no reaction when prosecutors described the evidence. Her final text messages, the shallow grave, the surveillance video of the two figures carrying her body into the darkness. He simply stared ahead, eyes empty. The courtroom was silent, except for Kada's mother sobbing in the front row. Detectives still don't know what was said inside that car, whether she begged, fought, or simply went quiet. But they know one thing: King had planned something that night. He'd stolen a car, he'd brought gloves, bags, ammunition. He'd driven to an abandoned school before. None of it was random. And though they now had the truth buried beneath the dirt, one question still lingered: who else was there that night? Because the footage didn't lie, two other figures helped him carry the weight of what he'd done. Two shadows still out there, somewhere, walking free. The morning after the discovery of Carter Scott's body, the air outside the Philadelphia Police Department was heavy. Reporters lined the steps as detectives filed past in silence, their faces drawn. The scene behind the old ADA H.H. Lewis Middle School was still sealed off, police tape fluttering in the autumn wind. The earth freshly turned where the shallow grave had been unearthed. For investigators, the case had turned from a missing person search into a homicide investigation, and now it was about proving intent. Inside the department, detectives pored over hours of phone data, trying to reconstruct the last moments of Kada's life. Her phone had gone dark at exactly 10:24 p.m., shutting off completely near the Aubrey Recreation Center. King's phone, however, kept transmitting for several hours after that, pinging cell towers that traced a grim path from Chestnut Hill to Germantown, then looping back toward his home in West Philadelphia. The data formed a digital trail of movement that prosecutors later described as the map of a murder. They cross-referenced that trail with surveillance cameras from traffic lights and nearby businesses. Frame by frame, they watched King's gold Toyota Camry pass through intersections minutes apart, each timestamp aligning perfectly with his phone's location. By the time his car returned home around 3 a.m., investigators believe Kada was already dead. In the following days, forensic teams combed the wooded area near the grave. They found fragments of latex gloves and a torn section of black plastic bag. Both contained trace DNA consistent with King's profile. Investigators also found a single 9mm shell casing buried in the dirt, the same caliber of ammunition recovered from King's house days earlier. It was enough to solidify the case. But for Kada's family, the evidence brought no peace. Her mother refused to see the gravesite again. "I can't stand there," she told reporters. "I can't breathe knowing what he did to her there." Her father visited daily anyway, standing at the edge of the police tape, hands in his pockets, just staring at the ground. One officer said he never spoke a word. He just stood in the cold and watched. Behind the scenes, the district attorney's office was building the narrative for trial. They had the phone data, the video surveillance, and the recovered evidence, but what they needed was motive. What had driven a 21-year-old to commit such a calculated act? The text messages between Carter and King hinted at a volatile relationship, brief, obsessive, and recently broken off. Friends told investigators that King had become increasingly possessive, calling and showing up at Carter's work unannounced. One co-worker described how Carter once hid in the staff bathroom after receiving a string of calls from him, whispering to a friend, "He just won't stop." By the fall of 2025, she had cut him off. But to King, that rejection was fuel. He had already faced similar accusations earlier that year. A domestic violence case involving another woman who alleged he had choked and confined her. That case had fallen apart when the victim backed out, but detectives now saw it for what it was, a pattern. Assistant District Attorney Ashley Tachalovsky stood before cameras in late October and said, "We believe this was a deliberate act of control and violence. Mr. King's behavior shows clear escalation. Kada's murder was not spontaneous. It was premeditated." In the following weeks, the story dominated local headlines. Community members gathered at vigils, lighting candles and holding signs with Kada's photos, a smiling young woman with dimples and bright eyes. The phrase printed on most of the posters read "Justice for Kada," but in the city's darker corners, a quieter question whispered among investigators: who were the others? Because the video was undeniable. Two other figures appeared alongside King in the Aubrey Rec Center footage. They were never clearly seen, their movements fluid and synchronized, as if they knew exactly what to do. They helped carry the body, then disappeared into the night. When police released still frames from the footage, hoping for public identification, no one came forward. Not a single tip. Detectives theorized that these accomplices might have been friends of King, possibly individuals tied to his earlier criminal record. But without faces, they were ghosts in the story, shadows carrying a secret no one could yet name. King, meanwhile, sat in jail without bail. His lawyer, Shaka Mzee Johnson, refused interviews, saying only that Mr. King maintains his innocence. In court, he was silent. Even when the judge read the murder charge aloud, King's face was unreadable, a mask of indifference. In early November, during a pre-trial hearing, prosecutors presented their early evidence: the text exchange between Kada and King, the burned vehicle, the phone data, and the recovered shell casing. The judge ruled the evidence sufficient to proceed to trial. The most haunting testimony came from Kada's co-worker, the last person to see her alive. She described seeing Kada on the phone, pacing near the break room doors, her voice shaking. She said, "I can't believe you're calling me about this." She sounded scared, but she still went outside. When asked why, the witness hesitated, then whispered she thought she could calm him down. That single sentence hung in the courtroom like smoke. Outside, reporters waited for reactions. Kada's father stood before the microphones, his voice low. He took her because she trusted him. That's the part that breaks me. She trusted him. As weeks passed, the case drew growing outrage. Activists pointed to patterns of gender-based violence and stalking behavior, often overlooked until it was too late. Social media flooded with posts demanding reforms, tagging the district attorney's office with #JusticeForKDA. Her story became more than a crime. It became a mirror of fear for women who had ever been followed, threatened, or ignored by those they once loved. Behind the courtroom's public face, investigators continued working leads on King's alleged accomplices. They found evidence that, on the night of October 5th, multiple cell phones pinged in the same location, the wooded area where Kada's body was later found. 2 of those numbers belonged to people connected to King, both of whom claimed they were nowhere near the site. Detectives pressed, but without physical proof tying them to the burial, prosecutors couldn't move forward. The shadows remained just that, shadows. The next chapter unfolded quietly. Forensic labs confirmed that Kada's DNA was found on the seatbelt and passenger side interior of the burned Hyundai Accent. Investigators believe she was shot inside the car. Her body later moved to the woods. The fire, set days later, was meant to erase that evidence, but traces of blood remained trapped in the car's crevices, protected from the flames. That small fragment of evidence would later become a cornerstone in the case against King. Meanwhile, the DA's office announced that it would refile the January 2025 kidnapping and strangulation case against King now, using it to establish behavioral patterns during the upcoming murder trial. Prosecutors called it chillingly similar. A young woman, lured by text message, attacked, and left terrified, but that time, she survived. As these details surfaced, the portrait of King darkened further. Former acquaintances described him as manipulative, controlling, and explosive. One even claimed he boasted about knowing how to make people disappear. In December, King's defense attempted to argue that the evidence was circumstantial, that the surveillance video did not definitively show King's face at the burial site, and that the "kidnap me again" text could be misinterpreted as flirtation. But prosecutors countered with what they called the unbroken chain of logic: the phone data, the surveillance timestamps, the burned car, the ammunition, and King's silence. "He didn't just kill her," said Ada Tuchalovsky. "He erased her." By the start of 2026, the city's grief had hardened into resolve. Kada's family launched a scholarship fund in her name for young women in nursing programs, because she wanted to heal, her father said. At her memorial, candles flickered against the cold wind as her favorite song, "Rise Up," played through a speaker. Her co-workers stood together, some crying quietly, others just holding each other. No one could understand how someone so gentle could meet such violence. As the trial approached, tension built. The prosecution prepared over 1,000 pages of evidence. The defense filed motions to suppress certain digital records. King remained expressionless in each appearance, refusing interviews, never addressing the family. But behind that silence, detectives noticed something curious. Several messages King had sent after Kada's disappearance. deleted but later recovered from his phone's cloud backups. One read simply, "It's done." Another, sent the next day, said, "She won't be found." Those two sentences, forensic analysts testified, were sent less than 12 hours after Kadar's phone died. When the trial opened, the courtroom was full. Journalists lined the back rows, and Kadar's family filled the front. The prosecution began with the story the city already knew but would never forget: a young woman leaving work, trusting a familiar face, stepping into a car that would become her coffin. They played the surveillance footage frame by frame. Each moment of movement, each flicker of light in the dark parking lot, felt like a countdown to death. The defense tried to argue that the footage was too blurry, that the timeline had gaps, that there was no direct eyewitness to the shooting, but the evidence was relentless. The burned Hyundai, the DNA, the phone data, the message that said, "It's done." When the verdict finally came, it was quiet in the courtroom. The foreperson stood, voice steady, and read, "Guilty on all counts." Kadar's mother covered her face. Her father exhaled and whispered, "It's over." But for him, and for the detectives who had lived inside this case for months, the ending didn't feel like justice. It felt like a wound that would never fully close. Because those two other figures, the ones who helped bury her, were never found. No names, no arrests, just ghosts in the night, carrying the weight of a body and a secret that may never see daylight. In Philadelphia, the case became a grim reminder that evil doesn't always look like a stranger in the dark. Sometimes, it looks like someone you once trusted, someone who smiles at you from the driver's seat and says, "Let's talk." And somewhere beyond that smile, in the quiet spaces between love and control, Kader Scott's story became a warning that the most dangerous monsters are often the ones who already know your name.